solitary, prison, living in the car, homeless, losing everything. My addiction story. Let's go. What up? Kyle Ruggeri, the Soberdog, coming at ya. I want to tell you guys my addiction story. I went over a couple things in the channel before, but not the whole story, start to finish. And we've gotten a lot of new subscribers since I started posting a lot again. So I wanted to give you guys the run of everything. So for me, how it got started. Now, a lot of people in addiction have childhood trauma, terrible upbringings, or just bad stuff going on. For me, it wasn't like that. I had a wonderful childhood. I have two great parents, older brother, grew up on a nice street with, other kids playing around there. It was wonderful. Probably around the age of 10, there was just something different up here that many of you, if you struggle with addiction, you probably can relate to. We all have that anxiety, but for me, there was just that extra level of just constant thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. It gets exhausting. Why it started, I don't know. Where it comes out of, I don't know, but it went crazy. Then at 13, I had the first chance to drink. I was in Myrtle Beach with a buddy of mine. The night before, we hung out with some other girls our age, sober, and it was fine. The next night, we went to a liquor store, got some guy to buy us a bottle. His older brother found it and did the good elderly brother thing and took our bottle and said, "You guys can't handle this," and gave us a 12 pack of beer, 6 each. We got it down and I got, drunk for the first time. I remember that opened up a door for me in my brain. It was like a spiritual awakening, so to speak. It was the first time in the last couple of years that constant, rat wheel going over and over stopped, quieted. I wasn't concerned with everything going on in the world, and for the first time was like, whew, and I loved it. I loved it. I didn't go off the rails right away. I did pretty well in school. I played football. You guys know I've talked about football a lot on here. Did very well in football. Always played up 1 or 2 levels, captain of the team. But from that start, it planted that seed. Whenever I got the chance to drink or, do anything else, I wanted to, because it took me out of myself. That was my goal, get out of this head that just goes over and over and over. About a month or 2 after that first time drinking, I smoked weed for the first time. Weed's an interesting one. I don't like it. And when I say I don't like it, I don't mean I judge people who smoke it. I could care less. Personally, I don't like the effect of it. I never really did, and yet I still did it all the time because I would rather be high and paranoid than sober in this mind. So I smoked weed for the first time, at 13. And again, I didn't jump right into it, but it became a constant around. As the next year progressed, it went from drinking once every 2 months at 13 to once a month at 14. And then by the time I got to 15, every weekend, both nights. Plus at this point, I tried coke for the first time. Loved that drug the first time I did it. Tried ecstasy. Loved that the first time I did it. Mushrooms, loved those, but wasn't something you could do, every weekend. But the other stuff, I loved it. Everyone knew that Kyle and their crew partied a little harder than normal, but no one really questioned much of it because we did a good job of hiding it, first of all, but also because for me in particular, I kept everything in check. Doing well in sports, captain of the team. Attended every in-season and off-season practice, no matter what. I got good grades in school. I wasn't straight A's, but always B's and A's. I had a part-time job. Everything looked good, and at that time it really was relatively good. Yeah, if I were to look at those behaviors now, it's not normal for a 15, 16-year-old to, be able to take down a whole bottle of Captain Morgan with, 1.5 grams of coke. But I was having some fun and not a ton of consequences yet. At 16, some of the consequences started to happen. I got a DWI a week after I got my license. It got reduced to a DUI later, but I literally didn't make it a week with my license. My grandfather sold me his old Lincoln. This car was beautiful. It was a couch on wheels, so comfortable, had all the bells and whistles. He drove it to you know, the store and back was it. And sold it to me, and not even a week later, I get a DWI because of arrogance. Out with some buddies. One guy was, I don't think he drank at all. If he did 1 or 2 beers, I could drive home. No, it's my new car. Hell no. And I was hammered and got a DWI. I ended up going to court, and I got put on probation for 3 years, and I lost my license for about 1.5 years. I got in trouble at home. I got in trouble with the football team. I got in trouble in the court. It did click in my brain, but it also like gave me an out too. Now I never had to drive. So that was a reason I could always be the drunk one, because, oh, I don't have a license or a car, guys. Probation, I didn't take seriously from the first minute, but I went to see the probation officer. So I walk in, this bright-eyed 16-year-old, I'm in good shape in football, and he sits down and he's talking to me. He says at the end, basically, here's the deal, kid. I've looked over all your stuff, your letters. You go to school, you get good grades, you play football, you're doing very well. You're on track to go to college and play football. You messed up. I get it, okay? Don't hassle me, and I won't hassle you. Don't give me a reason to fuck with you, and I won't do it, okay? Besides that, we're good. So I was like, great, all right, cool. And that was how it went the rest of the time. Never came to my house and checked in on me. I had a 9 o'clock curfew. I literally don't think I made it. I was in my house before 9 o'clock one single day ever during that probation time. And when the time came up, I'd gotten in trouble once during probation. I'd gotten arrested because I was at this point going to college and playing football. The judge and the probation let it slide. I got in a fight downtown Rochester, and you know, just was a fight. We showed up to court the next day. The judge is like, you guys know each other? No. You ever seen each other prior to last night? Me and the guy were like, no. She's like, all right, get out of my courtroom. They basically threw it out because, you know, we were just fighting the night before at a bar and got arrested for it. That's kind of how the rest of my high school went, was just we partied very hard. A lot of coke, a lot of ecstasy, occasionally dipped with opioids, but not that much. Also, one of the things that happened is during high school, I'd gotten a couple concussions in football. I always had this mentality of I had to be a tough guy, and if I got hurt, I never told anybody about it, which I don't recommend for anybody out there that's an athlete. My coaches always said there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. When you're hurt, you learn how to suck it up and deal with it if it's a little cut or a bruise or a stinger. Injured, you're injured. I would get injured and not tell anybody. So I got a couple concussions, and then when I went through the concussion protocol, which at this time, 2003, 4, 5, was just like the trainer and the coaches asking you a couple questions, you know, I'd lie to them, even though 10 minutes prior I was in the bathroom throwing up, dizzy. When they asked me how I was feeling, I'm great, I'm good, I can get back in the field. I thought I had to be back in the field for my team. I wanted to. That didn't help me at all. So finish up high school and go to college. Now, college to me was great. I went with 3 other guys from my high school. We all played football, Edinburgh and Pennsylvania. Some pretty clear signs that I didn't party like everybody else right off the bat. So we had to go to school like August 1st and do triple sessions in football and all that. The rest of the kids showed up roughly the 25th of August, give or take. I got arrested first day of September in, you know, first year of college. Get drunk out of my mind at a party, walk back from campus. On the way back from campus, you know those blue emergency call buttons they have on every campus that you could hit if you're in danger. I was just mad overall, like at some stuff going on in my life. I drop kicked this thing and hit the button. So the alarm goes off and the cops come. When the cops come, I freak out and run, and they start chasing me. They tackle me and, you know, cuff me. Now at the time I chewed tobacco, so I had a big chew in. So he turns me over and he picks me up, and when he tackled me, the chew got all in my mouth. So I spit it out and it landed on, some of it got on him. So I get charged with alerting police to a false report, running, resisting arrest, and like a minor assault on an officer for spitting. This all plays out. And between the football coaches and an expensive lawyer I ended up, and my family helped me out with, that got kind of swept under the rug. But that's how my college went. I started drinking day one and didn't stop. Now, the concussions come back. I got a couple concussions in college on the field, which I was very quiet and didn't tell people about again. The trainer would ask me some questions. You know, you had to sit out of practice because you were dizzy yesterday. Everything all right? Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. Meanwhile, I'm messed up. And I get a couple off the field too. I mentioned that fight earlier. I got in a different fight situation where I just got my clock cleaned. And then obviously the football, you know, getting hit in football. So at this point, it's like, all right, the trainer, the coaches, they knew about the concussions. This is when the Will Smith movie came out in the media, 2007-8. So concussions are getting a lot of attention. We had this whole protocol we had to take where you had to take a computer test before the season. And there was a bunch of stuff. So they were like, you got to sit out for a little while. If you got 2 concussions back to back, you're supposed to sit out for a year. One of them was off the field that was in this little period. So it's kind of like, you got to sit out. We're going through whatever. We're going through all this. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done playing. I keep getting these concussions. The neurologist that I saw straight up told me, every one you get is going to get worse. It can be like a snowball effect. He's like, if I were you, I'd be done playing. And I decided that's it. I'm done. I want to keep some brain cells. That was a real big deal. Football was my identity from 6 years old to now I'm 19, 20 at that time. And I'm no longer playing. I live in a house with 4 other football players in college. My whole schedule was built around football. I was lost. My identity was gone. And then I also have all these post-concussive symptoms. Lack of focus, you know, just dizziness, changed me, depression, it changed me, you know, mentally. What did I do to cope? Drink and party. What did I do to fill that time? Drink, drugs, party. What did I do to deal with the concussion stuff? Self-medicate. So I did some physical therapy. It helped a little bit, but not, you know, not a lot. So the doctor ends up putting me on some painkillers. Now, I'd tried opioids up to this point. Whenever I could get them, I would take them for fun, maybe once every month or 2, but that was it. You know, now I have a whole prescription for them. Tried taking them the right way. Very quickly, I'm taking them with alcohol. I'm taking them with Coke. I'm going through my script quicker. Doctor upped me a couple times, and then he said, that's it. That's the max I'm giving you. So by the time the doctor started to wean down to cut me off, I was fully hooked. I needed them all day, every day. Somehow managed to get through college while my addiction consistently progressed. I start hanging out with people that don't even go to the college, that are just drug users in the area. Start spending my whole days finding money to go get drugs. Drugs were really expensive there because it's a rural town in Pennsylvania. Get out of school and just bounce around job to job to job. Again, addiction progressing. At this point, I'm doing Oxy 80s, as many as I could a day. Realistically, on a good day, I would do 3 of them. On a bad day, 1, depending on what I had the money for. My tolerance at this point, realistically, I probably could have done 3, maybe 4 a day. All of this is getting worse. Using Coke the whole time I'm doing it. Any other drugs that can, benzos, anything that was available. Figured I need the geographical cure. End up moving to Baltimore. Figure that would be, you know, my answer. Problem is the geographical cure never works if it's not accompanied with other behavioral changes. So go to Baltimore with a couple of my buddies from college who didn't use drugs or any of that. They were there working in an insurance company. You know, they drank like socially, but that was it. Very quickly in Baltimore, I found people with drugs and went off the rails. This is when I really got into heroin. It was way more available down there than Oxys. So real quickly, I got into heroin, connected with some people, and ended up meeting this older couple that lived right in the center of Baltimore off Lexington Avenue. When I would supposed to go to our appointments every day, we would go to the office from 8 to like noon, go to lunch, and then we had to do appointments from 1 to 9 every day. Literally like in people's houses, selling them life insurance. My dog's making a bunch of noise back here. Danny making noise during the video. So I'd go to the office from 8 to 12, and then from 1 to 9, we had appointments all day. And when I was supposed to be driving around Baltimore going to appointments, I'd go to these people's house. It was this older couple. They were in their 60s at the time, both drug users. Pick them up. We'd go get dope and Coke and whatever. go back to their house, and I'd sit at their house every day and just get high all day, every day. That's what I did instead of my appointments. And I'd occasionally try to push an appointment or two in to make some money, but very quickly falling off the rails. Baltimore culminated in New Year's Eve. I fell off the Baltimore Harbor, New Year's Eve 2012. I wake up in Johns Hopkins Hospital on January 1st at 4 p.m. I'm tied down, strapped down to the hospital bed, naked. I got tubes in and cuffs on and a thing up my penis, a catheter. And the nurse is calling me Nemo. And I'm like, why are you calling me Nemo? She's like, you went swimming last night, sweetie. I'm like, what are you talking about? End up looking at the report. I fell off the Baltimore Harbor. It's a solid fall down. I hit my head on the top thing on the way down, not on the bottom. If I would have hit my head on the bottom, I'd be dead. But fell off the Baltimore Harbor into the water. This is New Year's Eve in Baltimore, so the water's like 33, 34 degrees. It's just over freezing. And literally start drowning. One of my best friends had to jump in and save me and hold me up. Coast Guard was there, fire department. They ended up lifting us out. It was a whole ordeal nightmare. To this day, I don't know if I jumped, if I fell, if I got in a fight. I don't know what happened. That was my life at that point. Moved back to Rochester and tried detoxing myself because I'm fully hooked, need drugs all day, every day, or I go into violent withdrawal. That lasted a couple days, very quickly. I'm also shooting up at this point. So when you go from popping pills to snorting, your addiction usually goes up a level. If you go to smoking, it's usually kind of equivalent with snorting, but even a little bit higher, in my opinion, goes up a level. And then you go to shooting, it goes up a level. So, and once you go up a level, you don't go back down. Like nobody starts injecting heroin and then a week later is like, yeah, I think I'm going to snort. Typically not. Once you get the high of injecting, you don't want to go back to snorting because shooting it up gets you high 10 times quicker than snorting. My addiction took off at this point in Rochester. It already was, but now it's just 10, 12 times a day shooting up dope and coke as much as I can. In Rochester, I started committing a lot of crime to pay for my drug use, get arrested, and end up going to prison. My sentence was 3.5 years. General population of prison was a little bit easier than I expected. General population was definitely not super hard. If you don't have a crime against children, you didn't rape anybody, you know how to stay quiet, keep your mouth shut, and you don't get involved in, the gangs and they say the 3 Gs. Gangs, I don't want to say the middle one because it could be, but homosexual activity, let's just say, and gambling. And I would add drugs into there. If you stay away from those 4 things, you could stay out of trouble to some extent in prison. Obviously, stabbings, fights, all the craziness happens, but you could stay away low key. If you have a good crew, you just play cards. I did drugs the whole time I was in prison, got involved with all the shit I wasn't supposed to. I didn't join a gang, but I hung with all the gang guys because they had drugs. Did all the bad stuff, not the good stuff. And that ended up landing me in solitary. I ended up doing 12 months and 25 days in solitary confinement. Solitary fucked me up. If general population was a little bit easier than I thought it was going to be, solitary was 55,000 times harder than I thought it was going to be. Solitary fucked me up royally. I can't describe the torture of it. I've done a lot of other videos on solitary. I'm going to do more. Solitary changed me forever and is probably the biggest thing I deal with to this day with, mental stuff about it. Being thrown in a room and just locked away without human contact is insane. And for somebody that's an outgoing extrovert like me, to just be locked in a room with your thoughts, there wasn't a person in solitary that I didn't see go crazy. Some guys it's day 2, some guys it's day 15, some guys it's day 40, but everybody pretty much loses it to some extent. Get out of prison and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. End up going back, getting arrested again, going back, violation of parole. This time something changed. This time I was just sick and tired of just the grind. I was sick and tired of waking up, robbing, stealing, cheating, living in the car, just doing all that horse shit. My family was just devastated and disappointed, and I wanted to do something different. They sent me to a boot camp for parolees. Basically, it's like based on military boot camp, so you gotta like be up at 5 a.m., march everywhere you go, they're screaming at you. But it was fine with me. I didn't mind it. I got in shape, and I went from completely unstructured, you know, waking up, what store do I steal from, what dealer do I go to, just no commitments, no responsibility, nothing, to this environment that's fully structured. They tell you what to do, where to go, when to take a piss. They tell you everything. And I needed that. It was good for me. And when I got out of there, I started actually putting effort into recovery for the first time ever. That's when everything took off in a positive way and my life completely changed. I'm gonna get more all into what worked, what helped, how recovery was in the next couple videos, but that's a basic chunk of my addiction story. Now, each of those little pieces that I got into, I'm gonna get more and more into it with other stories as we go along in other videos. K-Ruggs The Soberdog, and I'm out. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with a friend. See ya.